dinner. Together with my colleague Peter Hubertek, I would like to welcome you here in Barcelona for the presentation of our all-new Civic. Now some words in German to all the Austrian. So, herzlich willkommen, auch nochmal von meiner Seite offiziell. Wir haben uns ja die meisten auch schon persönlich begrüßt. Ich freue mich, dass Sie da sind und wir werden nach der folgenden Präsentation dann ein gemeinsames Abendessen haben und den morgigen Tag dann mit den Testfahrten weiterführen. Mein Kollege wird Ihnen dann nachher auch noch den Ablauf des morgigen Tages erklären. Aber bis dahin wünsche ich einmal einen sehr angenehmen Abend.
Dobrý den, pánové. Rád bych vás přivítal oficiálně na prezentaci nového Civica. To je 10. generace. Počasí nám bohužel moc nepřeje, doufujeme, že zítra to bude lepší. Já tady po celou dobu, co vy budete jezdit, budu. Pokud budete mít jakýkoliv dotazy na mě, neváhejte se ptát. Pokud nebudu vidět, dodatečně mám všechno zjistím. Každopádně si novýho Civica užijte. Now I'd like to hand over to Mr. Ron Berger.
Thank you.
Schönen guten Abend, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Dobry večer, dámy a pánové. Let me now switch to English, which is all our second language, not our first language, and talk a little bit about new Civic. The technical part will come later. I have more the sales part. Basically, you can see that the automobile sales are still growing. We are now close to 5 million units, and we had last year quite one record after the next high achievement. And it is now quite a long time ago, 100 million cars, starting with a T360 pickup, where we came now until the new Civic. In 2016, we were also the fastest growing brand with an average increase of 20%. But if you go to the Central European countries in alphabetic order, Austria, Czech Republic, Hungary and Slovakia, because we treat all four always equal, we had increases from 34% in Austria versus the previous year to 42% in Hungary. So quite enormous growth, which has to do with new models, which also has to do with the delivery situation, which was improved. As you see here, in Italy we were wonderful, double, but then already you can find the other countries, and we are doing significantly better than other big markets. There are 622,000 Civics on the world, with from several markets, and in total we sell in over 170 countries. Civic is a kind of real heritage for our brand, because after the N series in the beginning, the first cars we sold were Civics and Accord. And now we produce them already in 9 factories across 4 regions. May I introduce now to you some of the important technical stuff. Without them, we would still have a nice drawing but no car. First, Matsumoto-san, which is assistant large project leader for the Civic. Welcome, Matsumoto-san. What do we talk today? About background, design and package, driving performance and equipment and safety. The Civic is now in its 9th generation, and as you see, in quite many countries sold. We invest 1/3 of all our R&D manpower, and we are a company with some say high R&D spending, some others say appropriate R&D spending, because usually we always invest more than 5% of our turnover in our R&D to get decent product. I now hand over. I'm too fast. I now hand over to Co, which will do this much better than I will do. And later I come again and give you prices and cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. So, also from my side. It's a beautiful Barcelona. Unfortunately, the weather is not that nice as we wanted it to have, so you can't see that much of Barcelona tonight, but normally the view from this hotel is beautiful. My name is Ko Yamamoto. As Mr. Berger already introduced me, I used to work at Honda R&D Europe for 28 years, and it's a great pleasure for me today to speak on behalf of the entire Civic development team, but especially I'm accompanied today by Matsumoto-san, who is the Assistant Large Project Leader. As already said, his expertise is the field of body design and chassis design. So if you have some more detailed questions regarding body, and we have done a lot in terms of body, he's the man to ask. I'm also accompanied by Mr. Ishihara, who is in charge for the manual gearbox, and I will also talk about the manual gearbox. So as Mr. Berger already pointed out, this is the global formation of the 10th generation Civic. Normally we used to develop the Civics all according to each region where we introduced the car. But from the 10th generation onward, we changed this development style. We are now developing what we call the global Civic, and this is the global lineup, and it is also developed under one development team. So on the left side we have the two-door coupe, on the bottom we have the four-door sedan, then of course the five-door hatchback, that's the one you're going to test drive tomorrow, and everybody's waiting for the Type R, which will come at a later stage. So today I will talk about design and packaging, of course, but I will spend quite some time talking about the dynamic performance of the car. The dynamic performance of the car was really the focus point of the development this time. And I will try to give you an explanation and all the background information, what was done under the skin of the 10th generation Civic. And I hope you will then find the bridge tomorrow when you drive the car between the driving performance and the actual technology behind. So starting with design and packaging, maybe you have heard me already talking about the so-called design principle of Honda. stands for man maximum, machine minimum. And as it says, we always try to minimize the space the machine and the mechanics occupy in order to maximize the space, but also the degree of freedom for man. And this principle has of course been applied for the 10th generation Civic, but also has been applied to all the models we have been producing and developing up to now. It is then paired with a very solid and sleek exterior design, and also the interior is meant to appeal a certain premium feel. This is the exterior design concept, which is young and dynamic. And it incorporates a very characterful face. The face of the car is very important. It's the identity of the car. And as you know, every little child can identify the car by its face. So that's very important. Then of course paired with a very sleek, sporty cabin, and some sculpted side panels. And this time it was very important also to have a very strong stance, because we wanted the car to look in a way that it actually drives very dynamically. The interior was designed in a way in order to appeal quality feel, but also very important for us was the operability, the fun to use. And fun to use is a great part of fun to drive, and I hope you will also recognize this tomorrow, paired with a very personal space around all the occupants. This is the packaging drawing. As you can see, we have reduced the overall height of the vehicle by 20 millimeter, and we increased the width of the car by 30mm in total. So we have now really a low and wide proportion. Now, for those who have carefully followed the evolution of the Civic, will probably immediately recognize that we have moved the tank formally from underneath the front seat now back to under the rear seat. And that enabled us to also lower the hip point by 35mm, which is a great deal. And with this we can now realize a very engaging and sporty driving position. And this is of course very important in order to experience also the dynamic performance of the new Civic in full extent. The boot capacity, even though the car has got lower, we still are class leading with the 478 litres in terms of volume, but it's not just the volume, it's also the very wide and very big tailgate opening, combined with this very unique tonneau cover concept as you've seen in the video. You can operate it from the side, makes this cargo space very, very practical. Now moving over to dynamic performance. So I will now explain what technology is actually under the surface of the 10th generation Civic, and in order to explain why the car drives the way it does. I will talk about the new powertrains. I will also talk about the completely newly designed platform, then the new suspension system, and finally I will talk about aerodynamics and NVH. Starting with the powertrain. The drive feel we wanted to realize was secure and agile, and that of course on a level which is clearly exceeding the usual performance level of the compact C segment class. So in order to realize that agile and secure drive feel, we tried to break down, let's say, all these subjective attributes into actual performances. So we wanted a car that is direct and responsive. We wanted the car to drive powerful and efficient. And of course we wanted the car to feel sophisticated and refined. And then we tried to list up all the performance the car needs to have, for example, an agile handling, direct steering, a responsive drivetrain, engaging driving position, and so on. And all these performances then were led into objectives for each hardware area: engine and transmission, platform and body, suspension and steering, and also NVH. So we will start with engine and transmission. The two engine variations you will drive tomorrow, one is the 1-litre 3-cylinder direct injection VTEC turbo engine. It's a really high efficiency engine. And on the other hand, the 1.5-litre, also direct injection, but 4-cylinder VTEC turbo petrol engine. And this is a truly high performance engine. The 1.6-litre diesel will come to the Civic at a later stage. It is currently under adaptation and calibration for the Euro 6 compliance. These are the specs for starting with the 1-litre engine. The output is 95 kilowatts or 129 PS. The maximum torque is 200 Newton meter, and this maximum torque of 200 Newton meter was slightly reduced to 180 Newton meter for the CVT version. It is really a lightweight, low friction and high efficiency engine. Next is the 1.5 litre. It's a 134 kilowatt or 182 PS out of 1.5 litre displacement. The maximum torque is 240 Newton meter, and also here the maximum torque figure was slightly reduced for the CVT version. And this of course is a very high performance engine, very powerful, and both engines of course comply with the Euro 6 exhaust emission regulations. I will now briefly explain about the technology for these two engines. Starting with the turbocharger, since it's a turbo engine, it's obvious it has a turbocharger, but we utilize a very compact, highly responsive monoscroll turbocharger with an electric wastegate. The electric wastegate has the advantage that you can really finely and also very quickly control the boost pressure. And this is very important for the quick response of the engine. Then of course the Honda original variable valve train technology, the VTEC. VTEC nowadays means not just the lift control, but VTEC is basically the VTC, the variable timing control. This is actually controlling the overlap between the intake and the exhaust valve. And the 1 liter engine even has the lift control. The 1.5 does not have it. And by controlling the overlap and for the 1 liter also the lift, you can actually optimize the filling of the cylinder. The filling of the cylinder, this means how much oxygen, how much air you can get into the cylinder in order to maximize the output. And that is very helpful for increasing the power, but also to improve the response of the engine by making use of the scavenging effects happening in the cylinder. Now, turbo engines, maybe you know, have a particular issue. This issue is knocking. And knocking, as you know, is an uncontrolled combustion or start of combustion which is happening in the cylinder. And this normally starts at the high temperature hotspots, we call it, like the exhaust valve or the piston. And knocking, as you know, is very dangerous. Knocking at high speed can destroy an engine in seconds. So knocking really needs to be avoided. What you normally do to avoid knocking is you run, from the design perspective, already a lower compression ratio. So normally turbo engines run a much lower compression ratio than naturally aspirated engines. They run figures like 9:1 or even below 9:1. But a low compression ratio also has to sacrifice output, so torque, and also efficiency. And therefore we did not want to reduce this compression ratio. We wanted to maintain a high compression ratio, you already know from naturally aspirated engines. So the 1 liter engine is running a high compression ratio of 10:1, and the 1.5 liter engine is even running a compression ratio of 10.6:1. So how did we do this? As I told you, since knocking is starting at the hotspot of these components, we had to reduce the temperature of these critical components. And for that, we even applied Formula 1 technology. So we now use a sodium-filled exhaust valve. Sodium or natrium is really put into the exhaust valve, and that clearly reduces the temperature of the exhaust valve. For the 1 liter engine, we even have a cooling gallery in the piston. So it's a channel, it's an oil channel, which goes around the piston in the inside, and this channel is being hit by an oil jet from beneath during the movement of the piston, and that jet actually creates a stream of oil in the piston in order to cool it. So that is also significantly reducing the temperature of the piston in order to avoid knocking. We also have a new design of the water jacket, which is actually wrapping the exhaust manifold from top and bottom in order to reduce the exhaust gas temperature. We managed to reduce the exhaust gas temperature by 100 degrees, and this is a quite big deal. So not just improving and maximizing the outputs, we also did a lot in order to reduce the mechanical friction, in order to improve the efficiency of the engine. So, for example, we use an electric thermostat. And this electric thermostat is controlling the water temperature at a higher level than normal, at 105 degrees instead of normally 90 degrees during warm-up. And that leads to the result that also the oil temperature is running a higher temperature, and a higher oil temperature is of course reducing the viscosity but also reducing the mechanical friction in the engine. Now talking about oil, we have also a variable capacity oil pump. An oil pump normally in the engine is designed in order to provide sufficient oil at low RPM, because that's the most critical situation, to really supply enough oil to the engine. But that, on the other hand, means that at high RPM, the oil pump is delivering too much oil to the engine, and this is causing unnecessary mechanical friction. So what we did, we applied a variable capacity oil pump, which is adapting the amount of oil to be delivered to the engine, and in this way, we could also reduce the mechanical friction, especially at mid and high RPM range, significantly. Basically much more technology which is inside the engine. We didn't put them all here, but we have both engines, the 1 liter and the 1.5 liter, displayed tomorrow in the restaurant where you will have lunch. So for those who are interested, you're more than welcome to have a chat with us. We will be there all day, and we can talk about more in depth regarding the engine technology, if you're interested. Talking about transmission, the specialty of Ishara-san, starting with the 6-speed manual gearbox, we wanted to create really a smooth but also very precise gearbox. So we did not just reduce the shift force by another 40% against the outgoing Civic, but we also minimized the what we call the double bump force. So if you actually shift from one gear to the other, you normally feel this resistance in the shift lever, and this double bump force we try to minimize by designing synchronizer rings with sleeve teeth. So in this way, the gear shift is now even more smooth. The 6-speed manual gearbox, by the way, also has a dual flywheel in order to minimize the vibrations coming from the engine. Moving over to the automatic transmission. For the automatic transmission, we utilize a CVT. And in the CVT, we have a torque converter. And this torque converter is connected to a twin damper system. Twin damper system, this means that the twin damper has two different spring characteristics in order to cover a wider range of frequency band to reduce the vibration in the powertrain. And the CVT with the torque converter, as a comparison with one of our competitors with the DCT, this is the dotted line here, you can see that from response perspective, it is also much better than a conventional DCT, and also the acceleration smoothness is much better than a DCT. So I hope you will experience the CVT tomorrow. It is a very good match with the new engine, because the new engine has very high torque at low RPM, so you will not have this elasticity this rubber feel anymore. And the CVT also simulates a 7-speed automatic gearbox, so it's actually shifting up and shifting down. So you will see tomorrow, and I look very much forward to hearing your comments and your feedback, how you felt the CVT. Now moving over to platform and body. This is also an area where we have implemented a lot of technology. As I already pointed out, the car got lower by 20 millimeter, and by all the rearrangements and also the new platform, we also managed to reduce the height of the center of gravity by 34 millimeter. And this of course brings a lot of benefit in terms of the handling of the car. And we could also increase or improve the weight distribution from formerly 63% on the front axle, now down to 61% on the front axle. And this also has a very positive effect on the handling and the response of the car. A direct drive feel, this also requires a very rigid body structure, because if you make your input, you want the car to react very quickly, and if the car is too elastic, then this will always lead to a delay. So what we did, we changed our production method of the body itself. We are now creating a so-called inner frame first. We can compare that maybe with a roll cage of a racing car. We make a very rigid inner frame where we can also effectively connect the joints, the side panel and the roof frame. And then once this very rigid inner frame is completed, we just put the outer shell on it. And this inner frame is also made of high tensile steel. There's rigid roll cage production cars. There are also many other technologies we implemented in the body in order to improve the body structure. I will not go into detail because we have also displayed a complete body in white tomorrow at the restaurant, where we will have lunch, and all these technologies come up the car, so you can have a very close look at the actual body in white. What I want to point out is that we have increased the amount of high tensile steel we use in the car from formerly 6% now up to 20% in total. And using high tensile steel, as you can understand, it increases the rigidity of the body, but is also capable in reducing the weight. And as a result, we actually managed to reduce the weight of the complete body in white by 16 kilograms. And at the same time, we could increase the torsional stiffness of the body by 52%. So quite an achievement. We also managed to reduce the weight of suspension parts by 8 kilograms, and we increased the roll stiffness. The roll stiffness is another parameter we utilize in order to describe the quality of the suspension. We increased this by 12% on the front and even 32% at the rear. Now let's move over to suspension and steering. I was saying that the target was to create an agile drive feel, and we were wondering how can we manage to realize this agile drive feel or this direct handling. So we studied what is actually happening when you turn into a corner. So you start with the steering input, and the steering input is creating a yaw moment on the car, and this yaw moment is creating a lateral force. And this lateral force in the end initiates the roll movement of the vehicle. And this is basically the kinematics of cornering. So we thought if everything could happen in a shorter time, so if we could actually reduce the delay of all these reactions, then we can also manage a direct and responsive and agile drive feel. And that's exactly what we did. Starting with the initial input, that's the steering input, we now utilize a double pinion steering system. It's an electric power steering with a variable gear ratio. So basically the same technology as we use in the new NSX. A double pinion steering gearbox utilizes, as the name says, two pinions. One pinion is responsible to move the rack, and another pinion is actually responsible for applying the assist force for the power steering. And by using two pinions, you can clearly separate these functions. And that brings the benefit that you can reduce the friction in the pinion or between the pinion and the rack. you can reduce the friction, which is enabling a much, let's say, more responsive reaction of the steering. The variable gear ratio now is on the rack side. So the rack is this long thing that moves to the left and the right in order to change the direction of the wheels. And the gear cutting, the geometry of this gear cutting on the rack is increasing its angle the more you go off center. Yeah? This means if you turn, the more you turn, the more progressively the wheels turn into the corner. And that's the variable gear ratio. As far as I remember, on the route you will drive tomorrow, on all these corners and bends, you do not have to take off your hands from the ideal 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock position. So you do not have this hand-over-hand operation. So it's very convenient, but also very safe. Basically important also to fully experience and enjoy the direct drive system. The steering feel is also one of the, from my personal opinion, one of the biggest improvements I could feel comparing the former Civic or the outgoing Civic with the all new Civic. I'm also very much interested to hear your opinion about this tomorrow, once you've done your test drive. The suspension itself, on the front we have the McPherson strut. We now utilize an L-shaped lower arm. The L-shaped lower arm has the advantage that you can clearly separate the lateral component from the longitudinal component. A stiff and rigid lateral component is very good for handling. This gives a very high toe stability, we call it. And a soft longitudinal component is very beneficial for ride comfort. And by applying or designing an L-shaped lower arm, we can actually have a very rigid bush here in order to have a very high lateral rigidity, and the longitudinal component is now linked to a compliance bush, which is a hydraulic compliance bush. So the lateral component here is now being compensated by a hydraulic bush, which has a very soft characteristic. And in this way, we can actually combine a very rigid lateral stability with a soft longitudinal stability. The hydraulic compliance bush is also used at the rear suspension, but the biggest change you can recognize at the rear is that we moved away from the torsion beam and we are now utilizing an independent multi-link suspension at the rear. And that, of course, increases the lateral rigidity to a completely new dimension. We have an increase of lateral rigidity of 88% of the rear suspension and 48% of the front. So the front is now very quick, very responsive, and at the rear we have a very high stability, and maybe the high-speed stability of a car is mainly influenced by the stability of the rear axle. For higher grades of the Civic, we also offer an adaptive damping system. It's a CDC system, it's a continuous damping control system, as we used to have it also for the Civic Tourer, but on the Civic Tourer we had it only on the rear axle. For the 10th generation Civic hatchback we had it on all 4 dampers. And it is capable in changing the damping force both for the compression side but also for the rebound side. You can choose between normal. Normal would be a quite good compromise between handling and comfort. And once you push the dynamic button, it enhances clearly the handling performance. So please experience this feature tomorrow as well. Now moving over to NVH and aerodynamics. Of course, in order to really create a refined car, we put a lot of emphasis on reducing the noise. One thing is we use the sound insulating glass in order to shut out the noise from the outside. but also we use a lot of insulators and sound deadening materials, especially around the hood, but also around the dashboard and around the rear wheel housings in order to shut out the road noise. And also the underfloor we have, especially around the engine compartment, we have an underfloor cover, but also under the cabin. And that makes the 10th generation Civic one of the most quietest cars within its segment. Talking about aerodynamics, also here we could find some improvement, a 3% improvement in total as a combination of the projected surface and the drag coefficient, and this also maintains basically the class leading position of the Civic in terms of aerodynamic performance. Now let's talk about some equipment and safety features, starting with the Honda Connect. The Honda Connect has now a centrally positioned meter display, and this centrally positioned meter display can be operated by steering switch, and you can basically indicate some interesting information, and you can have a look at it without taking your eyes off the road, so it's also quite good for safety. You can have navigation instructions on this indicator, but you can also display SMS, mail, you can have some audio information, telephone information, or some fuel consumption records as indicated here. Honda Connect is also one of the first systems on the market which is compatible with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so that you can have full connectivity with your smartphone. Now let's talk about advanced safety features, the Honda Sensing. The Honda Sensing combines the capability of a camera with the capability of a radar. And by combining these two, it also enhances the possibility and the range of possibilities. What is all included in Honda Sensing is framed here in the red box. So it incorporates the City Brake Active, the collision mitigation brake system, then the adaptive cruise control, then the lane keep assist, the lane departure warning, the road departure mitigation. So all this is part of the Honda Sensing, and Honda Sensing itself is standard for all Civics or all 5-door Civics sold in Europe. And this is also a very unique situation in the market. On top of that, for some selected grades, we have two additional features. One is the blind spot monitor, and the other one is the cross traffic monitor. Now for the European market specifically, we have also expanded the feature range of the Honda Sensing. So for Europe only, Honda Sensing will also include the traffic sign recognition, the intelligent speed limiter, which actually retrieves the information from the traffic sign recognition automatically, and the intelligent adaptive cruise control, which can anticipate cutting in vehicles. So all this is also included in the Honda Sensing, and therefore the standard option for all Civic hatchbacks sold in Europe. But active safety, of course, is just one side of the medal. Honda has also invested a lot of research and development effort in order to improve the passive safety, and we are quite confident that we will achieve a 5-star rating for the Euro NCAP once the car has been tested. And that brings me to the end of my presentation for today. I hope I could give you, let's say, sufficient technical information, what we have done in order to make the car, how it drives, and that you can also find that bridge tomorrow while driving between the actual driving performance and the technology behind. And I hope you will have slightly better weather conditions than today, I hope, And what I hope more is that you will have basically the same wow effect I had experienced when I first drove the car. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's go a bit more in detail. Let's start with the 1 liter turbo. We have 4 grades plus the premium bag, starting with the S grade. The S grade is always the lowest grade in Honda. And also the lowest grade, as you can see, has the Honda sensing. So we do not eliminate the safety on the lower grades like some other manufacturer may do. And also there is alarm system and the LCD instrument panel. The starting price in Austria is 20,990 euro, which is 469,900 Czech crowns. Also, we do not sell in our region many S cars. Then it goes via comfort, where you have additionally the 8 speakers, the Bluetooth HFT, the auto air conditioning, heated seats and 16 alloy wheels. Then up to elegance, and finally executive. The base executive version has premium Audi, the blind spot recognition just was mentioned, and can be added on with the premium bag by leather, heated rear seats, and the wireless charging pad. The final premium bag on a base price of 27,790 in Austria, or 639,900 crowns, is 1,000 euro or 30,000 crowns. This is 1 liter. We said often in the presentation that actually we want to have an advanced and sporty car, and therefore the 1.5 liter, which is the more sporty engine with over 180 horsepower, has different grades. It is Sport, Sport Plus and Prestige. Basically it follows the pattern you have seen before, but for example the Sport has the center dual exhaust, highly appreciated in some fairs already, and also certain kind of exterior changes. It starts from 28,990 or 639,900 crowns and goes up to the Prestige. CVT is 1,300 euro, 35,000 crowns, and the metallic or pearl paint is 510 euro or 13,900 crowns. You have all the presentation on your stick, so it is not necessary to write all of this down. We have 7 colors, starting from red over white, going to certain kind of gray colors. And as a start, we want to sell in 2017 in Austria 410 Civics and 104 doors. The 4 doors will come later from approximately May. And in Czech it is 310 Civics and 70 4 doors. The sales start for Austria 5 doors the 25th of March, while it is the 20th of March in Czech Republic. You may ask you why this is different. It depends when you can get cars available. And the 4-door in both markets starts from May. We also have, of course, a start offer. In Austria, it is the 1,000 euro take-off bonus, a leasing finance, and 1 year's third casco insurance free of charge. And in Czech Republic, there is a bonus for first customers of 20,000 crowns and a design pack accessory for a value of 20,000 Czech crowns, the orange line and the black line. So far, the market and also the figures from the several grades. I will now hand over to Antonio to explain you where to drive, how to drive tomorrow, and how to experience all the cars. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, very warm welcome from my side as well. Welcome to normally sunny Barcelona. Unfortunately, the weather is not proving to be very kind to us today or to yourselves tomorrow. Nevertheless, we will still want you to try the cars. What cars do we have here for you? We have 4 different cars that we would like each of you to drive. So we have the 1 liter manual in elegance grade. They're all the red ones. 1 liter CVT, also in elegance grade. And they're all the blue ones. The 1.5 manual, which is the Sport Plus grade, which are all the white ones. And the 1.5 CVT Prestige in the polished metal color. So how are we going to do this? In your pairs, there will be 4 different test drive sessions. Each test drive session is, has a range of, which includes a route of just over 1 hour. I'll show you what the route is. The plan, because of your later departure flights, so the plan would be to have a little bit more of a relaxed morning, particularly the weather will also enable that. So in between 8 and 9 the cars will be ready, and then as soon as you're ready you can start your test drive. But the latest at 9:30 to start your first test drive, please. And finish around about 10:30, the latest, at the restaurant. I'll show you where that is on the map. And this restaurant is our base, so this is where we will be during the whole day. This is where the Austrian colleagues and the Czech colleagues will be, as well as our engineering colleagues, R&D colleagues, as well as Honda Europe colleagues. So we will be there. As Co mentioned, there will be a cut body there, and the engines, and a Civic 4-door also as a static display, so you can see the differences between the 4-door and the hatchback. And more importantly, there will also be the food. So at 12 o'clock, we would expect that you would have driven 2 of the cars already. And then after lunch at 1:30, you can start the second test drive session, or the third and the fourth test drive sessions, to drive, end up driving all 4 cars, and finish driving around about 4:35 o'clock back at the restaurant. Those of you on the Frankfurt flight, we will then transfer you from the restaurant around about 5:30, in time for your Frankfurt flight. Those of you later on the Vienna flight, 7 o'clock I think is the transfer, so it's a bit later. Nevertheless, at the restaurant there's lots to do, lots of things to see and to speak with. So, sorry, the last thing, timings. Now, those of you who really want to, breakfast is available from 7 o'clock, but and also in the morning, where you picked up your room keys, staff members will be there to help you tomorrow and to check your driver's licenses, please, and so you can sign in disclaimers. And then with that signed paper, you can go to our colleague Lionel, who can then allocate the cars. There will be an allocation, basically 5 cars for the Czech group and 6 or 7 cars for the Austrian group, and you will have a chance to test drive each of the 4 cars. As long as you'll come back to the restaurant and give the chance to the next person to drive the car that you've just driven. Test drive A, the first one, is just under 70 kilometers, so just over an hour, as I explained. Start here at the hotel, go down the hill a little bit, turn left again at the next junction, and come back up behind the hotel, back up the mountain. So you're avoiding most of the Barcelona city traffic. And there's a recommended driver change point halfway through. All the routes and all the locations are in the navigation system. So in the morning, our colleagues will be outside. We will assist you in terms of, the cars will already be set up for the route automatically, but nevertheless we will point that out in terms of the Honda Connect system. And then you would eventually finish at the restaurant Tropical. That is our base. And as you can see, it's relatively close to the airport. So it's only a 10-minute direct transfer between the restaurant and the airport. And it's, with the weather permitting, it's a very nice place on the seafront. Route B, which is the one that you will be doing most of the time, starts and finishes at the restaurant. So if you remember, the hotel is up here. So now we're going west, and we do this in a clockwise direction. And it's a nice mixture of fast roads, and also particularly up here there's a nice twisty section before and after the driver change point. And that's the road, the test route that we would recommend that you do most often. And particularly in that time of the day, it will be relatively quiet. This has been proven. It's just over 70 kilometers, just over 1 hour, an hour and 10 minutes. So it's within your 1.5 hours window, there's plenty of time for you to do that. And then when you come back, ask questions if you want, or while you're getting ready for the next car. Finally, the final route, which is not this one because you're all going to finish back up at the Tropical, but some of your other colleagues who do finish at the airport, but this is not going to happen tomorrow, so apologies for that. You will all basically finish at the Tropical restaurant. Last point, disclaimers I've already mentioned, please. So we'll bring your driver's license tomorrow morning. Tropical we've already spoken about, so there is lots to do there, lots of time for you to also relax at the same time as recharge. All the information is on the news. It's on your USB sticks and also on the news. There's a lot of photography there. However, if you do want some extra photography, again, weather permitting, but Manel will be here. So please feel free to approach him directly and book him, or through myself, or through any of our team members, and we can make that happen tomorrow. All the cars are equipped with Teletrack, so the automated toll system, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. So go through on the motorway tolls, go through the lane with the T. Of course, it goes without saying, please no smoking inside any of the cars. And the last point is the red light. So I'm sure most of you have been to this hotel many times, but nevertheless you might not know. It's actually a private road that the hotel is on. And just at the bottom of the hill, the 100 meters, there's a small light which is either red or orange. And it's basically to warn you of the automatic bollards that come out of the road. If the bollards are up, then please do not cross them. But they will probably be down, and probably the red light will be on. So you can ignore that red light. Okay, so that's just to warn you that it could come up. But that's the only red light that you can ignore. And I think that's basically it. So I'd like to invite you to have some dinner. Unless there's any urgent questions that you have for Mr. Roger. Any questions? If not, then during dinner.
During dinner or during today, tomorrow, any spontaneous questions? And thank you very much, and let's have a nice dinner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was lachen?